Welcome to Shorty SuperCoach, and how about this for an office? I'm working out of my car, which surprisingly isn't a rare thing for Shorty SuperCoach. Often people are in the house and you don't want to be blurting out SuperCoach trades and things like that and talking about SuperCoach in the house, so you got to find your own sort of space. So often I do it in the car sometimes, but look, hopefully the lighting's not too bad. It's late. As you can see, it's 10:30. I thought I'd try and bust this one out on a Sunday, get it through a little bit earlier. People are trying to sleep inside, so I don't want to be talking about my team, trying to not wake them up the whole time. So maybe you can see me, maybe you can't, but the main thing is you can see my side, which, mind you, isn't really worth taking a great deal of note. But look, we'll run through the stats first. As you can see, where are we? Yeah, so look, not a fantastic score, but an improved score, built on a little bit. A few players on my side haven't really got going yet, so, I guess you can look at it. You moved up, quite a fair bit. You moved up 30,000 spots and were ranked in the top 40,000, which, is where I expect to be, in the top 20% at least. I'd like to work in the top 10% quite easily, but so an improved week. Not a great week. A few players let me down. So, look, I'll move on to the side. Backline. Look, obviously, Adams is doing what I thought he'd do, averaging really good numbers. Laird and Tui weren't overly impressive. Got a bit of the ball, but a few too many handballs. Didn't use it as well as maybe they normally would. And look, as a result, scored mediocre points. Otten, he was probably the surprise packet of the weekend. Sort of moved into that more forward ruck role as Jenkins went down. So, he seemed to benefit from that quite a bit, as the score suggests. Turned up, which was great. So that'll help him make a fair bit of cash, as well as some good points for us. Tommy Stewart, I think that's probably where he's going to be, about sort of your 60 to 70 average sort of player, and probably more so around your 60 to 65. So he scored 60. Wasn't fantastic, but his position in the side will largely be dependent on where Harry Taylor lines up. So if Taylor does move back, which I think is inevitable, he may be on the chopping block. Curtly Hampton, later being at 10 tackles, I think. So certainly he's doing a few things right, but not getting as much of the ball as maybe he would like. But 64 points, he'll look to build on that. He'll look to build on his first two rounds. And I think he'll be better for the run. And, of course, neither of the bench options played. I'll look to trade out Smith when there's a bloke on the bubble, a cash cow ready to be picked. So, and I think he'll find his way into the North Melbourne side sooner or later, I would imagine. So certainly not crisis time for me, or for Hibberd, mind you. Tommy Rockcliffe, Tommy Mitchell pairing up with a couple of 118s. So that was good. Nat Fife, a bit of a different captaincy choice. Of course, I thought I'd go Treloar on the VC, see if he could go big. Again, racked up possessions, but wasn't as effective with his ball use as he could have been. So he only scored 108. Beams was good with 120. And look, I ended up going Nat Fife, a bit of a probably unique selection as a captain, but to score nearly 120 in a side that got thumped, I was pretty thankful for, and nice to see 117 doubled rather than 52, as was the case last week with Hanbury, which absolutely burnt me. Sammy Palpepper, a fantastic decision, and so many people would have gone with him, and we'd be fantastic that we did, because we'd be stoked about it. He's really producing great numbers, and he'll make us a stack of money as the year goes on. Dan Hanbury just can't get going. I watched a bit of the game, listened to most of it. 71 points. He got a little bit more of the ball, tackled hard, but it's just not happening for him. And look, Kennedy and Parker weren't fantastic either. So I think as a whole, Sydney are just struggling to really get their game going. I'm going to stick with him. A few people will disagree with that, but you pick a player to do your job. Look, he hasn't started well, but I'm not going to trade him out. I think there's far more burning questions that I need to deal with, and I do have faith that Hanbury will come good. I don't think he's injured at the moment, maybe just slightly out of sorts. I think we'll see a response. I hope it's Friday night. I'm going to stick by him. Parford, I chose to field. I almost emergency loopholed Barrett, but I thought 50 points. You've got to have a bit more faith in the young man. As it turned out, either Parford or Pickett wouldn't have done well. None of them did that well. Probably if Barrett got around his 65, he probably would have had me sold. Unfortunately, I only lost 14 points. It's not massive, but a slight error. Into the ruck department, Grundy, fantastic, really showed what we thought he could do and produce the sort of numbers that those who selected him would have been hoping for. Racks up the ball, plenty of hit-outs, as well as contested possessions, and around the ground, plenty of balls. So, fantastic, and starting to really make us feel much more comfortable at that Grundy selection. Sandilands wasn't as good. There was really no dominant ruckman in that game. 71 points, plenty of hit-outs. Well, not plenty, but a few, but probably just didn't quite get enough of the ball or effective enough in his hit-outs and or ball use. So just didn't quite get going there, Sandy. Didn't find much around the ground either. In the forward line was, arguably my best line, I suppose, when I look over it. I mean, the midfield was pretty good aside from Hanbury, but Nankervis continues to deliver. That was great. McRae, I'm expecting consistent 90s, early 100s throughout the season, and he's doing that so far. I'm pleased with it. Dalhouse, I feel, still has another gear to go. 100, he was very good. He'll build on that. He'll build on that average of 92.5, no doubt. Josh Caddy, 92 points. Was glad that he could produce some good numbers for me this week, but he will be chopped. There's no doubt about that. Sean Higgins convinced me more than I needed to be. Caddy was already on the chopping block even after 92. I watched that game, and he just played too much forward. Far too much forward. He played the role well, and he did score good points, but, too often he was alongside Jack Rewalt or just outside the stoppage. Not good enough for me. We really need him in that thick of it into the stoppage. I thought he would. He hasn't. He will be a correctional trade. And look, Higgins probably only had to score me 90 or 100 points for me to be convinced. To score 130 or whatever it was, he'll most definitely be making his way into Shorty Superstars, which will free up a little bit of cash too. Dan Butler couldn't reproduce the 96, but 65 I think will take. Anything that's not terrible from our rookies, anything above 60 I think we just have to accept. Of course, if you get Powell Pepper numbers or Butler or Hannon numbers of last week, that's a bonus, or Otten of this week, mind you. So I think we just got to accept that sometimes. Jared Roughhead, probably just working his way into it. I feel as Hawthorn play a bit better footy, he will benefit from it a little bit. But to have not much of the ball and not really hit his straps yet and still score a 70-odd and an 80-odd, it's not the end of the world. We will need him to build on that, but I'll be patient with him. As I said, I'm really erring on the side of not pulling the trigger too hard on trades. Of course, Caddy will be one, and other than that, I don't think there's anyone who's absolutely glaring me in the face to really be moved on. But, Hannon couldn't reproduce his 96, and that's exactly why I said don't be nuts and trade him in, because you just don't know what they're going to produce. You just got to wait, give him 2 weeks. You'd be crazy if you burn a trade on Hannon. Now, the only price rise he'll get from that 96 will be next week. Then that's gone. That 96 is gone, and if he scores 40-odd next week, providing he keeps his spot, mind you, all of a sudden you're looking at a price rise from a 31 and a 40-odd. Ridiculous line of thinking, and I hope you didn't do it. I think Hartlett was a late out, and Brett Eddy came in, so it's good. I mean, of course he could be dropped again, but it's nice when guys are included in the side. Sometimes they can just find their role, and I think he was reasonable. I mean, who wasn't when it was a one-sided affair like against the Dockers? So, look, I think hopefully he can keep his spot in the side. We need all these rookies we can in the side. So I'll just zoom out there, have a look at the side in its entirety. So I guess this is where the decisions get real, I should say, is when prices start to move. And when I look at this side, Caddy, I think, is a clear one. That'll bring my kitty and bank to around 380, I think, just off memory. I'm going to stick with Hanbury. Mark my words, I will do that, barring injury concern. Because I'll back Hanbury in just on ability in football. He's a hard worker. I think once the Swans get it to click over a little bit more, I think he will be a beneficiary of that. He'll be a driving force of that. And I think he and Parker in particular are 2 guys who really need to get going. And as I look around, I guess one of the main positives too is no injuries. So it allows you to build and mould your team. Of course, Shaw had a poor score. I'll probably look to include him soon. Probably not too much else is really jumping out at me. now's the time to really let our cash cows appreciate and let them make us some money and keep an eye on who's dropping in price. So we'll have to wait and see how that all goes, and then we can really make our move. But probably the number one problem facing Supercoaches at the moment is the lack of rookies really scoring big points, because really there aren't a stack. Pal Pepper is doing it, Otten stood up, but there is really no guys out there that Butler's probably doing it well, but where you have that real confidence that they've got a role in their side, they're going to churn out 60s, 70s quite consistently and produce the odd 90. I'm not sure we've got that enough just yet. I think some of these North Melbourne youngsters are capable. We're just going to have to wait and see. I think some of these Sydney youngsters that we saw run around the other week are definitely guys who could produce it. Hayward, Newman and Fox. I think we can select them in no particular order, but I think it was defence, forward and midfield. So I think they should give us some options all over the field, depending how their second games go, which could be positive. So, and I think Aaron Black, as a Geelong supporter, I think he'll get a shot quite soon and a run. So he could also be a downgrade option in the weeks to come. So, look, thanks for tuning in, guys. I appreciate you watching. I don't think I got round to many comments last week, so apologies. I will look to get to some of them, but sometimes, particularly on the press conference, they're not really questions that people are needing answers, rather criticisms or abuse, which a few of those roll in. But, have your say. If you think my team's a pile of shit, absolutely go for it. All in good taste. So I'm all for some constructive criticism, and there have been some really good comments. But if you're just going to leave a comment and say, this team is shit, well, so's your comment, mate. It's a garbage comment. There's no point leaving it. I mean, provide some actual meaningful feedback. And if that's all you got to say, don't worry about it, because it's just useless. So by all means, get involved on the comments. I enjoy seeing the comments through, provided they've got a brain behind them. So awesome humour. Don't mind a garb comment if it's funny. So look, that's all I've got to say really on that and my team. Of course, leagues will start to get going now, so I'll take a look at those in the coming weeks as well. And this whole video setup will make it a bit easier to roll through the leagues and do regularly. So that'll be good. But I hope you had a good week in Supercoach as well. A bit higher scoring round this week too. So I think we'll be seeing quite a few happy Supercoaches around the week, which is great. So stay tuned for plenty more throughout the week. Of course, we'll preview all the burning questions, and off the back of the team news, it'll probably be fueled, because I don't think there's any glaring injuries or decisions just off the back of the weekend. So probably stay tuned for maybe the teams and what they bring. But otherwise, if you haven't subscribed yet, definitely get along to that. It's always great to see what I'm doing reflected in views and subscribers. Really reinforces that people are enjoying it and getting around it. So yeah, once again, thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you guys soon, and I'll see you later in the week.